Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Thank you guys so much for being here. Really quick, if you can, please be sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, check out Patreon. We've got some great stuff going on over there. Still got the giveaway going on, so be sure to check that out. But today we are going to be making a simple little cutscene. I'm going to show you guys how to work with Sequencer, just kind of the basics of Sequencer to set up a cutscene like this, and also to set it up to where it will play right when you hit play. So let's get into it, and I'll show you guys how to set this up. All right. All right, here we go, guys. So to add a sequence, I can go up here and I can add a level sequence here. And then it's going to ask us where we want to save it. I'm going to create a new folder under my contents and just call this sequences. And the naming convention that I usually use, I'm not really sure if there's an official naming convention for sequences, but I normally just call them my project name. So for example, this one is FPS Horror. And then I usually just number it. So that way, like if this is going to be our starting cutscene, I'll call it 001. And then it lets me keep things in order that way. Because when you're making a game, you're normally going to have a number of sequences, and you're going to have an order to them. So if our starting cutscene is going to be this, it'll be 001. But then maybe, like, I don't know, we had another starting cutscene that we wanted to put in before that. I could just rename this to 002 and then call our starting one 001. So that's the naming convention that I use. When we start that, or when we create that, it will automatically open Sequencer here. And I'll just kind of run through some of the basics here. If you already kind of know how to use this, feel free to skip ahead, but I'll just kind of go about this as kind of an introduction to Sequencer, as if you've never used it before. So we have our timeline here, and you'll notice that it is actually, by default, it is not going to be in seconds. I think I've changed it to seconds, but by default, it is going to be in frames. And whenever I'm making a sequence, I typically like to have this in seconds so that I can actually see how long the sequence is and how long a section is going to be. So you can change that by clicking on the FPS here and then go show time as seconds. And then you can, of course, change your FPS here as well. Typically for cutscenes, I do them in 60 FPS. By default, it is 30. Some of the other things here, you have just a quick save there. You can click on this button right here to quickly add a Cine camera into your level, and then it will also add it into your sequence. Now, you have to be careful when you do this. It is going to automatically pilot this camera, meaning that when I'm moving things around in my default viewport, we're actually moving that camera around. So I can eject the camera right here, and then you can see our actual camera is right here now. Some other things in here is you can have your keyframes, your different options for your keyframes here. These are kind of your different curves. We're not going to get too much into this. You can enable and disable snapping. This can be useful if you are trying to do something like really, really detailed in here. You see right now it is snapping to each one of these increments, but I could turn that off, and then I can move this like within this millisecond of wherever we are. That's a little bit more useful, like if you're dealing with actual frames. Usually I just have that enabled though. Then you have access to your curves here. We're not going to get too much into that. That's a little bit more advanced and a little bit more dealing with animation. So let's talk about the Cine camera. The camera that our character uses is different. And I know that this was a little confusing to me when I first started because there's two different types of cameras. There's the Cine camera, and then there's just the regular camera actor. And if we actually go to our first-person character, you'll notice that they are just using the regular camera actor. And the regular camera actor is perfectly fine and suitable for characters, but it has much more limited options than the Cine camera does. For example, you don't have all of these options for different types of focus, different lens settings, different crop settings. And these allow you to emulate a real camera much closer. So you can use a regular camera actor in your sequences, and that's perfectly fine. But usually I prefer using a Cine camera because it's going to give me much more control over things. And even if I'm if I'm doing a sequence with our character, as in we're in the first person view, I will typically still use the Cine camera. Now, the one thing that you do have to kind of figure out there is, since there's no real equivalent to the focal length in your camera actor, you just have the field of view. You don't really have a way to know exactly what the field of view is here because you just have focal length. So what I have found is roughly a 14 millimeter focal length is roughly the correct aspect ratio, or not aspect ratio, but focal length for what your character sees. So that's usually what I use, is a focal length of 14 if I am wanting to do a first-person, viewport in the sequence. But we're going to do a few different examples here and I'll show you a few different things that you can do. So let's talk a little bit more about the Cine camera before we get into kind of the actual timeline and all of that stuff. And I'll just kind of walk through some of these settings. We have film back. I'm not really going to go into the tracking settings, but let's talk about the focus settings and really the focal length and aperture. Those are going to be the main things that I will typically use. I always have this on manual. I don't really know how well the tracking works. I haven't even really ever used that. I usually just do focus, manual focus here. And another thing is I have 3 monitors, so I will typically go up to Window and add a second viewport, and then I will change this to my Cine camera, and then I'll just move this over to my second monitor so that I can see exactly what we're seeing there. But for the sake of this video, I'm going to just change this to where we have 2 windows side by side here. You can do that just by clicking this button right up here. Now yours will probably, by default, I think it is 4 windows, but you can change the layout by going to this hamburger menu on either of these, and you can change the layout to whatever you want. So you could have top on bottom, side by side. You could have 3, 4. I think this is default, what it's set to, but I am going to change that to side by side. And then on the left side, we'll change this to the Cine camera so that you can see exactly what the camera sees. Now, you have to be careful when you're doing work in here that you don't go in here and move around, because you can see you're actually moving the camera around. Now, in some cases, that might be what you want to do. So let's kind of pretend like we are going to do a little bit of a starting scene here, focusing on these items right here. And if we go back over to our settings here, first of all, you see this is out of focus. So you can change the focus, of course, by manually adjusting the focus here. You can also use this little eyedropper. So let's imagine that we want to have this bottle in focus. And you can see that worked pretty well. Sometimes that doesn't work very good. I think it requires collision, so if there's no collision on an object, that might not work. And then sometimes you just get some weird issues with that. You can turn on this debug plane here, and this will show you exactly where your focus plane is. So as I move this, you can see that it is moving closer or further away from the camera. And then some other things that are going to affect your focus are going to be your actual focal length, but mainly your aperture is going to affect that. So on a real camera, the aperture it's inside the lens, and it's those little blades that you see. And if you've ever seen a camera lens, you'll see the aperture get larger or smaller. And when it gets larger, you're letting more light in, and you're also getting a much higher depth of field, meaning that the background is going to be more blurred out. And then when it gets smaller, you're going to have a larger depth of field, meaning that more is going to be in focus. So you're going to be seeing more in the background in focus versus out of focus. So if we change this to something like 1.2, then you're going to see that this background is now a little bit more blurry. You can see the foreground is a little blurry. And this is a little bit nicer look, I think, than what we had. I also feel like the camera is rotated a little bit. Is it? Yeah, let's actually just zero out this here. And I'm going to I'm going to turn off the snapping first. And I'm going to, first of all, make sure that you're in local rotation. I mean, you don't have to, but it's going to be easier to work with your camera there. And now I'm just moving just the Z and the Y axis there. That way we're not moving this. So maybe we start with something like this. Now, let's move over and talk a little bit about the keyframes. If you don't know what a keyframe is added by clicking on this button right here. And this is going to be, it's going to essentially lock whatever your current position is, or whatever you're doing over here. You could add a keyframe for the aperture, for the focal length, things like that. It's going to lock that in that position at that specific frame. And actually, I see that we are not at 0. So I'm going to just hit this button right here to front to make sure that we are at 0. And I'm going to keyframe the transform there. So that means that now this is our starting position of the camera. Some other things that I might want to keyframe, I might want to keyframe our aperture and our focal length. We could even keyframe the focal distance because that might change. You could also keyframe your spawn. So this is not really something that we probably want to do here, but maybe if we had multiple cameras and we wanted to switch between them, we might want to keep this camera spawned for a specific amount of time, maybe to like 2 seconds. And actually, I forgot to put one at the beginning. So then at 2 seconds, we would maybe want to despawn that camera, keyframe that, and then we could have another camera that we could switch to. But I'm just going to undo that for the time being because we're just going to use this one camera all the way throughout. So the basic idea with using a sequencer and using keyframes is we want to maybe zoom out here. I mean, you could do anything you want really, but let's just imagine that we're, doing a cutscene here to where we start on this, and then we slowly kind of pull the camera back. So you want to just kind of move forward in your timeline. Now, where do you move is the question, and to be honest, there's no real right or wrong answer. I kind of just guess really, especially when you're starting out. You just kind of move it forward. It doesn't really matter too much. And then you want to move your camera in the world. So let's just, let's see, why is that not working? There we go. All right, so let's pull the camera back. Oops. We'll pull it back to there. Then we'll add a keyframe there. And now you can see in our, why is this, let's see. Okay, sorry about that. I don't know what happened there. But now we're seeing what we are actually seeing in the camera. And you can see, obviously, this has gotten out of focus. That is because, again, we're using a very low aperture. So if we wanted to stay on focus here, I could click on my camera again. And we could make sure that we are focused on the bottle. And then we could keyframe this. So now, as we zoom out, you can actually see the focus settings are changing as we're going back. Okay. And the other thing that you might notice, if we play this, let's actually just move our timeline to end at 2 seconds there. And another thing I like to do, I like to change down here, I like to change this to where it loops so that I can hit play and I can just see it kind of constantly do that. Now, you might not always want that, but a lot of times I like to kind of have it looping. I think that that is too fast. So I'm going to go to 4 seconds and I'm going to highlight both of these keyframes and just drag them to 4 seconds. And let's see how that looks. Okay, I think that's looking a little bit better. One other thing that you will notice is the speed of which this is kind of zooming out, or not really zooming out, but moving backwards. It starts really slow, and then it kind of gets up to speed, and then it slows down. The reason for that is if you go to the, let's see, if you go to the curves here, you can see how this is actually moving, and you can see that it's not linear. So it's starting out really slow, and then it's ramping up, and then it's kind of flattening out at the top. So we can actually change that kind of easily if I just highlight the transform here. And then if I right click that, and if I set that to linear, then if we go to the beginning, you'll see that it is now a constant zoom, or again, not a zoom, but just pulling back of the camera. And if we look at the okay, so that's on the red up here. That's our actual transform. You can see that it has changed to just be a linear curve instead of a more of an S curve there. That's really just a personal preference. A lot of times if I'm doing a shot like this, I will usually want to use linear. Let's see. Something else that I use a lot of is a fade track. So if you click on add here, you can add different things into this. And right down here is a fade track. And a fade track will allow us to do just what it says. It will allow us to fade in and out of the scene. So if we do a keyframe at 0 here, and if we set this to 1, then our scene is completely blacked out. But if we move this to maybe like 0.5 seconds to another keyframe, and then if I set that to 0, then you can see that we have a nice transition where it's fading in, although that's a little slow or a little fast, I think. Let's go to maybe 1 second. That's a little fast. I think we might need to slow a lot of this down. I'm going to do our fade at 2.5 seconds, and I'm going to, you can change the length of your camera cut here to drag this out as far as you want. So maybe we go to like 10 seconds just to give ourselves some time. And we'll move this to 10 seconds. And then I'm also going to move these two keyframes to maybe, let's try 8 seconds. All right, so let's see how that looks. All right, so I think that that looks a little bit better. Okay. Now, what we might want to do is maybe we have a few different shots here. You could do this a few different ways. You could have multiple cameras in here. One thing that I typically do, though, is let's use our fade to go ahead and key in another frame here. And let's maybe at like 7 seconds, let's put another key there, and then I'm going to make this be 1 so that it'll be fully black when we get there. So we zoom back, and then we go to black. And then what I want to do is, let's give ourselves more time. Let's just pull this way out 30 seconds. Okay. Oh, by the way, I can quickly zoom in and zoom out by just holding Control and just roll my mouse like this. So I use that quite a bit. You can also right-click, and then you can drag the timeline left and right. So from here, let's give ourselves maybe half a second. So let's go to 8.5, do another keyframe there. And then at, let's say 11 seconds, we're going to fade back in. So we'll set that to 0. Whoops. Okay, so this is something that annoys me with Sequencer. Whenever you set a keyframe, for some reason it doesn't actually switch to that keyframe. So if you're going to change the value, you have to make sure that you're actually clicked on it. So now if I change that to 0, then we have this to where it goes here, it fades out, and then for half a second, it's totally black. And then starting at 8.5 seconds, it's going to fade back in. And the good thing about this, what this allows me to do is I can move the camera in this blacked out section here. Now we can't see anything, so I'm going to hit Alt-3 to go into unlit mode. And now I can move this camera to wherever I want. So let's say that we wanted to, actually, let's zero out our rotation. And let's move the camera over and do, maybe we do a panning shot. Actually, this could look kind of cool to maybe do something like, you know what, I'm going to click on over here. Make sure that you don't right click and change anything, but I'm just going to turn off the lights there just so I can see what we're looking at. And maybe we do like a panning shot like this. Okay. And let's start right about here. Okay. So remember, we need to key in our location there. And I'm just going to snap that to where this starts. And then, so we're going to move from 8 seconds. Let's move to, I don't know, let's try 15 seconds. Okay, and then we're going to move our camera kind of like that. Okay, so I'm going to put in another transform. So I can tell that we're going to need to fix our focus. So let's go back to this keyframe. And let's get our focus maybe right there. And we need to change our key in that focus. And then I'm just going to click on that keyframe. I'm going to copy, move to this keyframe, Control V. That did not work. Why did that not work? Control C. For some reason, that is not working. Huh. Okay, I'm not really sure why that's not allowing me to copy and paste that. But we'll just go with that for now. See, again, I'm not really sure. Usually you can copy and paste those. I'm going to move this just to right here, just so I can see what this looks like. All right, so now let's also do a fade at the end here. So at maybe like 14.5 seconds, right about there. We key in a fade starting at 0, and then at the end, we will, first of all, I don't have that at the end, right there. Key in that and enter 1. Oh, see, this really gets on my nerves. So that should be 0. Then I have to click on that keyframe, press 1. And that is still not working. Okay, 0. There we go. Okay, so let me turn back on the lights over here. And let's see what this looks like. So let's go to the beginning and go ahead and hit play. So now we just slowly fade out or zoom out, and then our camera cuts to that position. And okay, I don't know what is going on there. Let's see what in the world happened there. What is our camera doing? Oh, okay. That's not what we set it to do, is it? Very strange. Somehow, I don't know what happened there. Gonna be honest, don't know what happened. Oh, I think maybe what happened is it copied this number, and it when I pasted it, pasted that as the location down there. Maybe. I honestly don't know. That's really weird. Sequencer is sometimes really buggy. So we wanted to have this come over to about here. Transform. And it looks like our focus is not right either. So we might have to fix that. Yeah, our focus is off there. Okay, I see. So these are a lot closer than these other bottles there. So maybe like right about here, we fix our focus. Let's focus on that, and let's key in that focus there. And then we'll also need to, let me see if I can copy and paste this time. Yeah, so that worked there. Not sure why it didn't work before. All right, let's take a look at this again. Let's go to the start and hit play. Okay, so let's see. I think this is a little too fast. So let's go to 20 seconds. And I'm going to grab all of this, slide this over. And for my focus, yeah, so I want to keep the focus that I have here. I want to keep it to about right there, and then we're going to shift focus to those other bottles. Okay, so let's see how that looks. Okay, and then we fade out again. Okay. All right, I think that looks pretty good. Now you could do other things. You could add sound effects in here. You can just literally drag sounds straight into a sequencer here. let's see if we have, I think there's like starter background. Yeah, that's just kind of like, just a general background. It sounds kind of like it's outside, but anyway, if we drag this in here, close that, then, you know, we could just have this playing in the background, and you can extend this out as far as you want. So, wait, why is that playing? Stop. Okay. So now, you know, you could play that in the background. Obviously, the sound doesn't really make sense in here. You can also fade in and out. So, you know, you could, if you didn't want that to start right away, or kind of fade in and also fade out. If I can get it, just have to get it at the top corner there. There we go. So something like that. Okay. So that is the basic idea of using Sequencer to create a cutscene like that. Now, we're going to do a couple of other examples, but let me show you how I would go about playing this. So let's imagine I'm going to save this. Now we can close that. I'm going to go back to just one window here. Let's imagine that we want to play that cutscene, you know, on begin play. When I hit play, as it is right now, we just are starting right there. Let me also turn off that print string. I think that is in our door that I put that on. Yeah, let's just delete this for right now. Okay, there we go. So the way that I would do this is I would do this on our level blueprints. And we have an event begin play. And what we want to do is we want to get our sequence, which, let's see, I don't know if it is actually in the level. I don't think it is. Oh, no, it is. Okay, so as long as your sequence is in the level, you can see it looks like this. Doesn't really matter where this is positioned, but I do like to try and kind of keep these roughly to where I'm going to be playing them, especially as your game gets bigger and as you get more areas, it's easier to just kind of keep track of this. So as long as this is in the level, we can just get a reference to it by making sure that it's selected, and then going here, right-clicking, and I can just create a reference, and then I can just drag out of here and type play sequence player. And then if we plug this in like so, we can, whoops. So this should work on begin play now. So let's hit play. And we get our scene playing there. Now, you'll see that our HUD is showing. So let's fix that. We can go to our first-person character, and if you remember, we are on begin play. We're running initialize, which is creating our HUD here. And so we need a way to set the visibility of this. And really, it would probably be good if we just create a couple of functions to show and hide our HUD, because we'll need that for whenever we want to make a cutscene. So under function here, I'm just going to create a new function, call this show HUD. And very simply, we're just going to get our HUD reference, and we're going to set visibility to visible. That's fine. And then we want to do another function called hide HUD. And we want to do the same thing, get our HUD reference, set visibility, but this will be hidden. Okay. So we can compile and save. Now if we go back to our level blueprints, we can get our player character, and we'll cast to first person character. And I'm just going to go ahead and create a reference here for our character because we'll probably need this for some other things down the road. So might as well go ahead and create a, call it player ref. And unfortunately, we can't just drag right out of here and type hide HUD. I mean, we can, but I'll show you what will happen. Okay, if we compile and if we hit play, you're still seeing that, and we get an error message here. The reason for that is we need a tiny little delay here. Because this is happening right away, I think it's actually probably happening before we even create our reference here. So it's not able to get the reference in time. So we need just a tiny, tiny delay. We can literally do like 0.01, and that should be enough. If I hit play now you can see that our HUD is now hidden, and then we need a way to show the HUD after it is finished. Now we could just take the exact length, whatever the length of that sequence is, figure that out, add a delay. But there's a little bit better way to do it. If out of the sequence player here, if I drag out and if I type get duration, I get this node. And then if I just get a delay node, I can actually drag from this return value into duration, and it will automatically convert this value into a float for us. And that float will be the length of the sequence. So now after this, we can get our player reference again. Whoops. Not set. Get. And we want to show HUD. Okay, so now we did that right. Save. Let's hit play. Our HUD is hidden, and we'll let the cutscene play. And as soon as the cutscene is finished, it should show our HUD again, which all that we have on our HUD is just the crosshair. Obviously, if we had more things, then we might want to show it, but there it is. Now, the other thing that you might run into, it wasn't really an issue in this case, but if I were to put my start right here, let's see. If I were to put my player character right there, I believe we will have an issue here. Let's see. Yeah, so you can see our character, so that's a problem. So we can fix that pretty easily. Let me actually do it over here so we can see it right away. If we click on the sequence here, there is a hide player here. So now if we play, our player is hidden. We also might want to disable movement inputs because you technically could move around. And so if you're moving around, then you might be in a weird place whenever that starts. But that will fix those two issues so that you can't move and you also can't see your character. You will notice that there is a hide HUD option here. That will not work for us, though, because we are not actually using a HUD class for our widgets or for our HUD. We're just using a regular widget. If you were using a HUD class, I believe that would work. Then you wouldn't have to go about doing this. You could just do it a little bit quicker there, but we didn't really set it up like that. So that's a little bit of a workaround. Okay, so I think this video is getting pretty long, so I'm going to wrap it up for now. but I will make a part 2 to this, and I will show you how to make a cutscene. I think what we'll do is make a cutscene of us lying in the bed, and maybe we hear something off in the distance, and we kind of wake up, get out of bed, and then we start the game. All right, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime, let me know if you guys have any questions. Be sure to leave a like, subscribe, check out the Patreon. We still have the giveaway going on for the next few days, so be sure and check that out. And I will see you guys on the next one. All right, take care, guys.